again, in our pop culture world, everything was a trauma, or
Sure.
we have like T-shirts and memes all about it, which can be funny but also so cringy, and then I think, but like there is grief because there is loss, and one of my favorite parts of grief work is when those attachments get made. And on the flip side, when we're talking about trauma, and either the client or me will sort of come up with the, what did you lose in that moment? This thing happened to you, so you like got something, but what did you lose? And so what does that grief look like? How does that look as we pull that grief from that trauma? And how did those two walk alongside each other, right?
Like some of my own therapy journey that I've had to work through and do, and
Yes, Julie, let's talk about your therapy.
Oh my gosh.
Your clients, they want to hear about it. They want to hear about it.
So much therapy. But I think if you're a good therapist, you go to therapy.
Yes.
In my personal opinion.
Agree.
But kind of through my own journey, right? Like I got pregnant when I was 20. And I have always wanted kids. My whole life. And I ended up miscarrying. And at the time I was really relieved.
Sure.
Because I was not ready for kids at that point. I was nope, I'm not ready. So if I hadn't miscarried, I probably would have had an abortion.
Right.
But now, looking back, I have helped raise lots of littles.
Yeah.
Lots of kids.
Yeah. Mine included.
Yours included, right? Like, love them. But like, there's lots of grief because like maybe that was my only chance.
Yeah.
Right? And like, as a female and like getting older and all those pieces, like the opportunity doesn't present itself forever.
Yeah.
And there's other options, and absolutely, right?
Sure. For sure.
But recognizing that though there was initial relief there with that miscarriage, there's actually trauma connected to that.
Yeah.
And grief connected to that. Not just because of those moments.
Right.
But what would my life look like now?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, if that baby had gone to term and I had kept that baby, right? That baby would be babysitting your kids. Like,
yes, totally.
Right? Full circle, really bizarre way, right?
Yes.
So there's this, just that recognition for me of the complexity of that.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted 7 for whatever reason. Like now I would never want 7,
Right.
but for whatever reason I wanted 7 children.
Right.
Right? And so there's this trauma and grief that walk hand in hand.
And I think around like pregnancy loss, so statistically, every like 2 out of 3 women or 2 out of 3 pregnancies, like it's super high. I'm not in maternal medicine, so I will, not give you accurate, but it is a super high number of women who experience miscarriage early, mid, and late.
Yes.
And it is another one of those things where it is a prime opportunity for someone to say something stupid, which is something we actually haven't talked about at all, is all the stupid things that people say in grief. But, people would say, well, it's better, right? And I'm sure if anybody in your life knew,
chance, it's okay.
If anybody knew when you were 20, they'd be like, well, Julie, like this is so much better.
Yeah.
And maybe, as you've said, like in that moment it felt better, but the long term doesn't feel better.
Nope.
And for any woman or couple who is struggling with fertility, it is not a journey I have been on. I have worked with people and our friends with many couples and women who have struggled with their fertility. The best thing to do is to shut up and just be present.
Yeah.
And
just hold space.
Just hold space. All of this goes with it, right? All of this grief goes with that loss and that trauma.
Yeah.
And I feel like so ill-equipped to really say much because what these women and these couples need is for people to show up and hold space. And recently I spoke with someone who they were choosing surrogacy, and I was like, oh, I think that's amazing. I'm so excited for you. As someone I had just met, and she said, I don't talk about it a lot because people are very judgmental of that.
Yes.
And they think, why don't you just adopt? Or there's so many kids in the foster system. And she said, but that wasn't our journey.
Yeah.
And so she is experiencing her own trauma from their infertility journey, and now more so loss and trauma because of things people are saying to her. And, I think we have no business passing comment, or passing judgment. But the truth is that in her loss, she had actually, I believe, had a traumatic miscarriage. There is a lot of grief, and she is not sure. Now, I was not seeing her in a counseling capacity, but she's not sure how, although she's excited for this new baby, how to accept this new baby into her family.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a real part of it too. And, loss of miscarriage or loss through miscarriage feels like failure.
Yeah.
Right?
There is something wrong with me.
There's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like specifically miscarriage. That is something that I have heard over and over, that women who struggle with fertility and then experience multiple miscarriages or even one, they then begin to believe the lie that something is wrong with me.
Yeah. And it's this feeling of like anticipatory grief, right? Like, I've had miscarriages and I'm trying again, but like I'm expecting to have a miscarriage again. And so like I feel like the joy has been robbed from me. I feel like, this baby isn't going to make it to term. And so like, why even get attached or why get excited? Because, this trauma has stolen so much. Not just my experience of, potentially being a mom, but also the joy and excitement of, the process and the phases and the growth and the changes, right? And so there's this constant kind of grief monster sitting back there, right? Going, okay, but what if, right? What if? Which then just like sucks all the joy out of it.
Right. Yeah, it's so true.
Like, and it's so just, and it's this, people make dumb comments and, such judgments and, give all sorts of their own suggestions of what worked for them.
Right. Oh,
right. And it's like, okay, I'm glad that worked for you. However, like, in my journey and in this space, actually, you need to just let me have my journey. Right? Just show up. Bring me a casserole. Right?
Bring that casserole.
Bring a casserole. Bring me a tea. Right? Like, don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do.
That's right.
Because actually, when you've been in that position, you've already done all the things. You've done all the research. You've read all the things. You've talked to all the people. Right?
So true.
And so there's this experience of deep trauma and deep loss. And then what happens if never? Right? Right? We see it also with, couples that end up having medically fragile children. Right? And this like anxiety and trauma and grief around dreams.
For sure.
What could have been or should have been or what could we have done differently or what's wrong with me, and like there's so many layers there. Right?
So it's so true. And as someone who has 3 healthy children, I think about that, and I think I do think about their future. I try not to plan it or control it, but I do think about it, and I do. You watch your kids grow, and from the moment you're pregnant, or for me that was my experience, you begin to like dream of their life, and you begin to dream of like what your relationship with them is going to be. So then when you lose a baby, or when a baby is born who is medically fragile or has, you know, a diagnosis that was very unexpected, because lots of things we can learn about before. And then there is this moment where those dreams get lost. And it can be something very profound and, you know, very a big diagnosis, or it could be something, you know, smaller. Even if, you know, your child is diagnosed with ADHD or autism, you know, that is something we're experiencing in our family. And it definitely has influenced, there is, you know, what I think of. And when I think of that future for, you know, that child of mine, I think like, oh man, like their road's just going to be a little harder. And yeah, like it makes me sad. It makes me sad. And there is grief attached to that, because I think, man, I didn't want it to be like this for them.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't want it to be like this for them. And so, you know, I cannot speak into what it's like to have a medically fragile child. What I do know as a parent is from the moment we know that life is on the way, we can't help ourselves but like hope and dream and hold those hopes and dreams. And so I think it's very normal, and it is, you know, okay to feel sad that if you have a child with any type of diagnosis, any type of medical fragility, to feel sad and to feel loss around that.
When I think about, you know, as you say, like the loss of dreams, right? And just, I think that's so broad, right? So broad. But I think that that's a type of grief that we miss.
Yeah.
And we dismiss.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, I think about, you know, as you talk about, you know, the ADHD piece, you know, I was late diagnosed. I had no idea, right? Because of my own life journey, it was never caught.
Yeah, sure.
And then, you know, caught in my late 20s, almost 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh.
Yeah, sure.
This is why I have struggled in relationships. This is why school was so hard for me.
Yeah.
This is why, you know, I have applied multiple times, more times than I can count at this point, right, for PhD programs, right? And I have never gotten in. Right. And one of the reasons why is because I struggled so much in school that my grades were not, you know, 4.0 GPA. But like I had no idea why.
Sure. And if you'd had the tools.
And if I'd had the tools.
Then you probably would have been okay.
Right. The tools and the medical support and the understanding of, you know, all of these things that we could advocate for.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. Like how different things could be.
Right. Sure.
Right. And I mean, and I love my life.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love my life, and I love where we're at and all those
Yeah.
things. But like, there's loss there.
Yeah. There's loss there. Yeah.
Right. There's loss for things that, you know, I wish could have been.
Yeah.
But are not.
Yeah. And I think that really sums up a lot of what we've been talking about in any of these areas, right? Like it's the loss of like, well, what could have been, you know, if that person stayed, or if that pregnancy had stuck, you know, what could have been. And I think in so many, you think any relationship in your life, it is about what could have been, you know, and with the loss.